Hi, everyone. Welcome to Understand IoT Message Processing, Analytics, and Business Integration. My name is Pamela Cortez. I am on the Azure IoT product team here at Microsoft, and I'm excited for you to be joining this webinar today. If you have any follow-up questions or ever want to reach out to me, my Twitter at AltaOhms, and you can find me on LinkedIn. But at the end, I'll be sharing some resources on how you can go to Microsoft Q&A and other places to ask technical questions or follow-up questions. So this is part of Building End-to-End IoT Solutions 6-part workshop series, which I'm very excited to be going through with all of you, how to get started building these end-to-end IoT solutions from the device side, how you can get telemetry from the devices, process the telemetry coming in, derive insights, and then take action of that data. So really every part of the 6-part series really teaches you how to do that and how to get started. This is also a great webinar series if you're taking the AZ220, which is our Azure IoT Developer Certifications. And so if you're taking that, I'll give some kind of tips on where to go and some learnings in order for you to get started with your training. Let's jump into the agenda. So we're going to go ahead and go through an overview of an IoT architecture. Then we're going to go into an overview of the data of IoT solutions and the telemetry that's coming up from devices. We're going to talk about how to integrate IoT data and then how to go ahead and collect insights and then take actions on those insights. Then we'll talk about stream processing with Azure Stream Analytics. And if you're interested for a demo here, on the playlist, if you're viewing on demand, we'll link to some additional demos for Azure Stream Analytics. But we will be talking about the architecture of Azure Stream Analytics and its capabilities. Next, we're going to go into real-time actions with logic apps. We'll go into time series insights, and then I'll do a walkthrough for time series insights and how to go ahead and create your own time series insights environment. Just an overview, a quick getting started, and then really walk through time series insights explorer for you to get an idea of the power of time series insights. And then I'll link to a bunch of resources to hands-on labs for you to go ahead and take, and then how to get started. Before we jump into IoT data, let's really talk about the IoT solution architecture. You know, this is really common solution architecture for many different IoT solutions across many different industries. We see these common subsystems in mostly all of these IoT solutions. So let me go ahead and break it down a little bit more for you. We have things, insights, and actions. Things, you can get all of your different devices connected to Azure through a cloud gateway. Our cloud gateway is really IoT Hub, and you could be able to provision those devices at scale with the device provisioning service. But really what I want to call out here is you have all of these different assets, all of these different devices, sending tons of data to the cloud, and you want to be able to do something with that data to drive insights, which is all about identifying patterns in data, automating these rules and alerts. And so this is what we're really going to be talking about today in this webinar here. So when you think of insights and what you want to do with this data, there's a couple key areas to think about. One is when you get that data from IoT Hub, you might want to do some stream processing. Really, what that means is stream processing analyzes this large streams of data records and then evaluates rules for these streams. And you know, we really recommend Azure Stream Analytics for this because you are able to analyze at scale. You're able to use time winnowing functions. And I'll talk more about Azure Stream Analytics and the features that you can use with it and why stream processing will make sense or possibly make sense for your solution. Next, you might want to do data transformation. Now, this is really all about, you know, how do you want to transform the data that's coming in the telemetry stream. For example, what if you want to convert a binary data to JSON or combine data points? If you want to do that, there's a couple different options for data transformation. There's also, if the data must be, transformed before it reaches IoT Hub, you can also we recommend using a protocol gateway, which is, something where you could do on the edge side. But otherwise, when data can be transformed after it reaches IoT Hub, so it's already in Azure, in that case, we recommend Azure Functions because it has, it's already built in integrations with IoT Hub and blob storage and other offerings that we have. So anytime you need to do that data transformation, we recommend taking a look at Azure Functions. Next, you're going to want to be able to store the data after you've done processing or data transformation. And there's a couple things you want to think about, and we'll dig really into about storage options, but really at the high level, you have a hot path or warm path, but hot path storage is really all about analyzing data in near real time as it arrives. So in the hot path, telemetry must be processed with very low latency. Hot path is really typically implemented using a stream processing engine. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more soon. Next storage option is really cold path, which this is perfect for if you're really trying to do batch processing in longer intervals, maybe hourly or daily. Cold path typically operates over large volumes of data, but the results really don't need to be as timely as hot path. So you can really, this is for kind of that long-term storage that you don't need right off the bat. A couple other things that you might want to be looking into is your UI reporting tools. This is for you to be able to configure and control your devices, but also being able to visualize what is going on, visualize the data and learnings. And then, the rest of it taking action. We have support for machine learning on the cloud side. This really allows you to have predictive algorithms that can be really executed over, historical telemetry data or, data that's just coming right in. And this is great for predictive maintenance. With that, we recommend Azure Machine Learning for option if you're looking into doing machine learning on the cloud side, which Azure Stream or Azure Machine Learning is also supported on the Edge, IoT Edge runtime side as well, which we'll dig into IoT Edge runtime in another webinar, which is called IoT Edge. And so the other thing you're going to want to do is actually integrate it with the rest of your business. This might be, once you figure out what you want to do with that data and you derive insights from that data, you might want to take some actions out of it. And being able to do that, you could do that through your business integration. So you can either be able to send an alert to a service worker to fix a machine, but being able to do that through whatever you have right now to support your business, we have a lot of products and services to help you there. And if you're interested in getting more of a deep dive, we do have this IoT reference architecture. And what's great about this, I think it's like over 80 pages of how to think about core subsystems, but it gives you, overview on what products and services would make sense for your solution and really deep dives into that. One thing to keep in mind is that today I'm really going to be focusing on, our platform as a service offerings, and because there are multiple ways of building an IoT solution. We do offer the way of all of these Lego blocks. Think of them as all these products and services that you could build these different IoT solutions with. But we do have an offering called Azure IoT Central, where we manage those products and services for you. And if you're interested in Azure IoT Central, instead of kind of these little Lego blocks, the last webinar in the series will cover Azure IoT Central. But today we're really going to be focusing on these individual products and services to help you build and actually be able to store your data, process it, do data transformation, and integrate it with the rest of your business. All right, let's go ahead and look at the IoT data overview. So, we have a couple different types of, data that comes into IoT systems that the IoT systems can generate. So let's go ahead and look at the different types of, IoT data that's coming in. First, IoT generates telemetry data. We mainly have JSON documents, and even from time to time, we encounter a lot of other data formats, including column and coded. But this is really all about, hey, telemetry data coming from your IoT device is one type of data that we normally see. Next is that we have all this metadata that's associated with the data itself. That's part of the IoT device or the system. The values there, it may change slowly over time. And so metadata, you can see that it can really store precious sources of information for your analytics. So for example, customer, your device ID, your location GPS, all of those different types of metadata is also what you see on top of the telemetry. And then one thing to note is the metadata can also be enriched in the process with reference to data and to other sources. And then we have, what we could kind of consider the unstructured bin, which is, there's a diversity of IoT generated data that can be immersed, like image, video streams, but many other formats that you can look into as well. And so IoT gateways like Azure IoT Hub really helps with that file upload from these devices, really that allows you to have a collection of all different types of unstructured data. So there's a couple questions you might want to be asking yourself when you're using IoT data source. And so one is for most IoT architecture, the IoT data comes through some sort of central point. Again, this could be a cloud gateway like Azure IoT Hub that can really dispatch incoming state and telemetry to downstream storages. So the first question that you might want to ask yourself is, where can you store your IoT data? And then, when you have your IoT data and you know where you want to store it, you probably want to do processing of that data or, structure it in a specific way, or you might want to be able to run analytics on it. So you need a place to process this IoT data and then be able to visualize the data as well. So there are a couple main questions for you to ask yourself. So let's talk a little bit about integrating IoT data. So really, there's three main challenges regarding data integration. First is really you need to prepare the data so analysts can find it and use it. Depending on your teammates, they might want unstructured data or they might just want the raw data. So you need to really understand what the analysts and the people using the data, how they can find it, how they want to use it. Next, you need to really think about integrating the data to the right level. Having a millisecond resolution on, let's say, a temperature sensor could be really useful. But if you're just monitoring your house temperature, you might not need that millisecond of information and telemetry coming in, and that might not be the right fit. And then also you might want to be able to duplicate the data to different types of storage because, you might want to, like I mentioned before, hot path and cold path and being able to visualize the data long-term versus needing the data right away. So you might want to be able to duplicate that data to different sources. So let's really walk through, IoT architecture to kind of explain a little bit of the pros of going with hot path or cold path and using our different products and services. All right, so we'll start very simple. On the left side, we have our IoT gateway. Again, that's Azure IoT Hub. Hopefully I don't sound like a broken record, but that is where you're going to be able to get your data. And then you have Power BI on the right side, which is all about visualizing the data. So let's start with the raw data that's coming in. We can store all of this incoming telemetry in this raw format directly into a data lake. This data will really unlock all analytics and machine learning scenarios that might arise in the future. Data analysts might want to also harmonize the data and be able to, do the same field name or unit of measurement. They might want to be able to access the raw data, and data analysts might want to harmonize the data. So you have data scientists who want the raw data, data analyze, or data analysts who wants to harmonize the data. So you need to think about those two different roles where you want to store the data. So if you want the data to be processed and ingested into a data store, we do have, support for data warehousing. To do this, we can use Azure Stream Analytics service to be able to go ahead and process and store the data in several different data sources, including SQL data warehouse, without having to deploy any, complex service. So you can see, again, you can store the raw data, you can process that data into a data warehouse as well. So you have those different role types. So let's continue on. I talked a little bit about Azure Stream Analytics there. And actually, I'll back up for a moment. The Azure Stream Analytics, you're using it to stream process and also be able to store it in a data warehouse and other products and services. But let me just talk high level about what Azure Stream Analytics is. So at the core of it, it's really easy to use. It's real-time analytics service that is designed for mission-critical workloads. When you build an end-to-end serverless streaming pipeline, you could do that in just a few clicks with Azure Stream Analytics. So you can go from 0 to production in minutes using SQL. It's easily extensible with custom code and built-in machine learning capabilities for, if you want to do some more advanced scenarios. And so one thing I like to call out with this is that, you have that simple SQL language. You have, built-in analytics functions. You have support across, Azure Portal, VS Code, Visual Studio. If you want to do everything through the command line, REST APIs. So you're really able to use however you like to build IoT solutions. It's easy to get started and scale as well. So anytime you want to do that stream processing, look into Azure Stream Analytics. And there's other options you could choose with stream processing too, but we're just mentioning this one today because it is the one that we offer that's already built in with IoT Hub. All right, let's talk a little bit about insights and actions. So really, the easiest way to see your data is really, by looking into existing dashboard, having an existing dashboard and bringing in your telemetry. You can use a Power BI report, maybe made by the IT department. You can go ahead and have nice integration with Power BI. And you can see that you're able to get the data from many different sources. So for this example, we can see that we have some storage that we're being able to visualize data in. We're also able to see that we're using time series insights for processing and then exposing that data within Power BI. Time series insights, you can visualize the data there, but lots of times what you see is if you're not using time series insights to visualize the data, there's a lot of businesses that are already using Power BI. So being able to view this data on something that most businesses are already using and find helpful, just know that we do have full support there for you to see that data coming that's stored from, let's say, an Azure SQL database from a Stream Analytics job. So I just wanted to call that out. There is support there. And that is a very common architecture, is to be able to just take the data from IoT Hub, go from Stream Analytics to process the data, and then visualize it in Power BI. There's some other options too. For in some architectures, we also see processing happening in batch mode once a day. And so if you want to look into that, there's a couple different options you can do there. You can implement this process with tools like Azure Data Factory or Data Flow feature within Synapse Analytics. You can store this data within the data lake, and it can be organized. Mostly in big data scenarios, you can use these architectures to refine this raw data to more structure and enrich it form, and it can be stored into the data lake. So you can see there's a lot of great different options there. So I mentioned before, there's a couple different, roles within your team. And, for data engineers, they're mostly asked to work with historical data. This is great, especially if you're looking into predictive maintenance or anything like that. Want to see long bits of the hardware for you to drive insights from it. And so, with Power BI and Azure, they can also easily work in real-time analytics. You can use Stream Analytics where you can process, integrate, and filter the data coming from IoT Hub in real time. You can output this data to several destinations. For example, you can use the streaming data or the streaming data tile within Azure dashboard to display this data in real time. There's no code, no background service. You just have to write a SQL query. So this is great for those data engineers who just want to be able to start visualizing data right away and needs to work with that historical data. Now, we talked about Azure Stream Analytics can process your IoT data in real time, both for your analytics store, but it also can be for real-time dashboarding needs. And that you can just send it straight to Power BI. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the demo. All right, let's talk about real-time actions with Logic App. All right, so I talked about, hey, you got the insights, but now you want to take action on those insights for the rest of your business. So after you're done crunching and displaying the data, and you know how to use Azure Stream Analytics, you step away from your code you can really be able to take that data and take action within that data. So here, for example, the same analytics job is also launching an Azure Logic app with no code. It's serverless workflow service in Azure, allowing folks to execute actions in a wide range of applications. So a great example of this is, let's say you set a threshold and you can go ahead and send an alert on Teams or Outlook, or there's tons of different other applications you can send this to, but the goal here is to take action. So you can really leverage Logic apps. We also have a BitGrid integration with IoT Hub, so you can leverage Logic apps through that. All right, so this is the full architecture that we just saw. We were able to store the raw data. We were able to process that data, do some stream processing, store it. We were able to go ahead and visualize the data through Power BI. We're also being able to set rules and be able to set off downstream processing for business integration. So for example, using Logic apps for Teams. So you could see that you could really have a bunch of different options depending on what your IoT solution is. But this is a very common scenario that uses both hot and cold path. Now you're probably wondering, what if you have an edge device? And what I mean by edge device, an IoT edge device is when you have a device that runs the IoT Edge runtime, you can actually leverage Azure Stream Analytics, Azure SQL Edge, all using that runtime. So if you have an IoT device, like a gateway device that you need to do stream processing locally before it even reaches the cloud, you have that option. All right, let's talk a little bit about time series insights and how you can use it to collect, store, and model and visualize time series and historical data. Start off with Azure Time Series Insights is really a serverless, fully managed platform that's really built for IoT, and especially for IoT data. It includes a lot of amazing features. One is that you can use time series optimized IoT scale data that can be ingested, processed, stored, and queried, all using time series insights. Just makes life a little bit easier to be able to have your data being streamed, or have your data from the devices go through IoT Hub, and then be able to enable time series insights and start seeing that data right away and stored. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as well. But it has a built-in rich user interface for ad hoc queries, for you to explore the data from data that's coming in from the couple minutes to months to years, which is really nice. And then being able to have support for building custom apps using the Time Series Insights platform. So there is a JavaScript control library for building these custom analytics apps, which is also a great feature to have as well. So let's really go into Time Series Insights and really kind of understand what we mean by collect, store, model, and analyze. So really, Time Series Insight, it's really the only product providing this end-to-end solution to collect, store, model, and visualize time series and historical data with no upfront data prep, without you needing to prep the data. So first, you can go ahead and collect, which is all about collecting your assets, such as sensors, equipment, buildings. They're really streaming all of this telemetry. And so you're able to easily ingest all of your IoT data into time series insights without having to write a single line of code. This is great. Once you have that data into IoT Hub, you're really just going into the Azure portal and connecting your hub to a time series insights. And so I'll show you that in a moment. Next, store. Next section is store. As IoT engagement grows, so does really your amount of data that you need to store. So multi-layer storage lets you take all that data across warm and cold path storage while being able to instantly access streaming and historical IoT data. This is really great that you have both of those options, and time series insights will help you with that storage. Next section is about model. In order to make sense of all of this, your data needs context. And this is all about where Azure Time Series Insights really provides that robust modeling capabilities to form a clearer picture of your operations. So you can do this by establishing hierarchies and relationships between different data sets. You're really going to be able to see that in the walkthrough that I'm going to be doing in a moment. But what's nice about that, you can really understand what's happening in a production line and really compare that to data that's coming from different assets. And so being able to tie those together and really understand what's happening will help you really drive insights. Next, you're able to analyze. This is all about telling your data story with the right visualization. Time Series Insights Explorer really provides this turnkey experience, including rich graphic visualizations and tools to conduct really deep analytic, or and for you to analyze these deeply into your IoT data. You can explore and monitor and perform, and even apply models for machine learning, inference, and prediction. So overall, analyzing is all about being able to take those rich graphics for you to really go deep into your data. Let's see how it works in the backend, just so you're aware of how the architecture looks with time series insights. So on the collect section, you could be connecting a couple sensors or hundreds or thousands of them. All of them are generating this time series data. And that's the telemetry we were talking about before. Collecting all this data is the first step to unlocking all of this potential. So depending on your types of your devices and the types of data you're collecting and how you plan on using it, time series insights leverages 4 ingestion models or ingestion methods, a better description. Really, you can bring your historical data from your on-premise storage. So if you already have all this data that maybe is a couple years and you want to bring it in, you can. So that's one method that you can do directly into time series insights. If you have unmodeled time series data, you can really use Azure Event Hub for ingestion. You can use IoT Hub for the best device telemetry. And you can also use Azure Digital Twins as well. So there's a lot of these different data sources and assets that are coming in that you're collecting. So really, no matter what your data is, you can collect it in time series insights seamlessly to adjust without really having to write any upfront code, which saves a lot of time and resources. Next, once your data is being collected, it's normalized through a stream processing engine before it's sent to storage. Along with the stream processing engine, really time series insights also provides a powerful calculation engine to add conditional logic, drive these time series, or the ability to recall the last known value as part of the normalization process. This data is really then returned to stream processing engine to be placed in either, let's say, a warm or cold path storage. Next is storage itself. And I mentioned, cold and warm storage, but you have those different types of option. Time series insights really gives you that flexibility to scale your storage as well on demand. So you can easily bring your own, let's say if you already have an Azure blob, you can do that, or Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, you could go ahead and use that, or you can create a new storage when you set up your time series insights. Either way, if you already have those storage or you need to set up new ones, time series insights can make that process easier for you. Now we're going to talk about model. Traditionally, IoT data that's collected from your IoT device really lacks any contextual information, which honestly, it makes it difficult to find and analyze sensors quickly because of this. A main motivator for time series model was actually to simplify finding and analyzing this IoT data, and do it quickly. It achieves this really by enabling and maintenance and enrichment of time series data to help you prepare for consumer-ready data sets for analytics. The modeling itself really happens at several stages of the process. It's layered over the stream processing engine, calculation engine, and storage options. So it really allows you to contextualize your data by types, relationships, and hierarchies. So really over time, the model continuously optimizes this data for higher performance in queries. Let's go to the next section, which is really kind of that final one, which is analyze, and how that works. So I mentioned that analyze is really about the rich visualization, and you have that turnkey experience via Time Series Insights Explorer. But you can also use the Time Series Insights open APIs and toolkit to connect to third-party applications for visualizing across devices. So also another thing you could do is if your team's already using Power BI, Time Series Insights can even connect to Power BI. It has that integration. So if you are already using it, nice integration there for you. And then you can use these interfaces to connect your data through the Time Series Query API, which allows you to perform interactive queries to retrieve data from warm storage, cold storage, or both. The Time Series model adds further context when the API call is returned. So you could see that you really have the ability to get the devices and the data from different sources, especially the IoT Hub or Azure IoT Hub directly from IoT devices, do processing of the data, store that data on existing or new storage options, be able to model, and then be able to integrate it with really the Power BI connector or other third-party apps as well. So I've talked a lot about time series insights and what you could do in the architecture, but let's give one example out of many scenarios where time series insights is really useful. Time series insights is great for anomaly detection and diagnosing different problems. So, for example, if you need to understand why equipment requires extra maintenance, if you need to search why inventory was damaged, research why production declined on assembly line, and then chasing down defective product in the supply chain process or defect in the supply chain process, Time Series Insights is perfect for this because you're really able to view that data, understand the data, and then be able to explore it and set actions after you're able to view this data. So let me go ahead and go through a Time Series Insights walkthrough. All right, let's dig into the Time Series Insights demo. So the first part of this demo, I'm really just going to showcase how to create a Time Series Insights environment and how to link it to your Azure IoT Hub. Next, I'll go into the time series Insights Explorer. So if you're new to Azure and you don't have an Azure account, make sure you get one. It's free. You can find out how to create an Azure account through the Microsoft Azure website. You can also go to aka.ms, Get Started Azure 2021. Once you've created an Azure account, go ahead and log into the Azure portal. And now we're going to go ahead and create our resource. You could do that by hitting the menu, Create Resource, and it'll take you to this screen. We do have an Internet of Things category. So if you click on that category, you'll see that IoT Hub is located there, Central, Digital Twins, and Time Series Insights, and our other products and services. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. Now, I already have an Azure IoT Hub. If you don't have one, I recommend creating one. But for this example, we're going to really focus on creating that Time Series Insights environment at this moment. So I have a subscription selected. Go ahead and select your subscription. Next, you're going to select your resource group, or you're going to create a new resource group. For this demo, I have a resource group called My Resource Group Webinar, but you could more than welcome create this new resource group and select that one. Next, you're going to go ahead and name your environment. I'm calling it Time Series Insights Webinar. Next, it's going to ask for your location. This is where you're going to select which data center you want to use, which region you're in. I'm just going to keep it in the US because that's where I'm located at this moment. Then you're going to create your storage option. And this is going to give you a little bit more information about, your storage limits, pricing information, and we recommend using Gen 2. But if you are on Gen 1, you can select those as well. Next, you're going to go ahead and give a time series ID. Time series ID is super critical. Choosing a time series ID is kind of like choosing a partition key for a database. It's required when you create an Azure Time Series Insights Gen 2 environment. So for this one, I'm actually have one ready. It's a device ID. And if you're interested in learning more about that, check out this video for a deep dive. She's done a phenomenal job really showcasing the ins and outs of understanding time series IDs and some best practices there. So for this example, I already have a legacy fleets of assets that has their own unique key, and I have a property of device ID already. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now you could choose code storage. And so I'm going to pick a code storage name here. A unique name. And then you could choose to enable warm storage or choose not to. It's fully up to you, and it's depends on your setup and really what you have for your solution, if you need access to warm storage or not. Next, your event source. So you can really have IoT Hub or event hubs. So I have an IoT Hub set up with a simulated Raspberry Pi where telemetry is being sent up to this IoT Hub from my device. And so I can go ahead and select that particular IoT device or IoT Hub and access policy name. First, I'm going to go ahead and say hub. I'm just going to give it a name for my event source. Now, consumer group. You're going to want to go ahead and create a consumer group. This is really important, especially since you're going to have your data probably from the device going to many different locations. And so it's important to have a consumer group. So I'm just going to say new. And I'm going to go ahead and name it consumer group webinar. Now, keep in mind, if you just go ahead and keep moving forward, you're probably going to get error. Make sure you add your consumer group. I see people get tripped up from that. So you can see now it's already there, ready to go. You can review and create. I've already chose a pricing pay-as-you-go, ready for us. And then everything looks great. I'm going to go review and create. So what's going to happen is it's going to create an environment for you, and you can start seeing the telemetry in time series insights right away, which is really exciting without any extra code. You could just start seeing that telemetry and visualize that your devices from that IoT hub. So all your devices will show up. So let's dig into what you can actually see when your environment is up and running. So this is a time series insights explorer, and you can see that I have a scenario and use case and a bunch of devices already selected, and you can nicely view data from a couple minutes ago, from years, and you could select a range, which is nice, from the last 90 days. You could even have slide it to see the different dates. So it's fully up to you, but it's just nice to be able to quickly move across historical data to start understanding and gathering insights from the solution. So for this particular scenario, we have a company here is a wind farm. I have a bunch of different plants and windmills or turbines, and each turbine has about 20 different sensors that are reporting data to Azure IoT Hub every minute. And so these sensors are gathering information about weather conditions, blade pitch, the yaw position. And so we're really understanding a lot from the data coming in with these turbines. So one of the things that you can do is really showcase a view that works for you. So for example, in this time that I have, I want to view a couple different sensors because I notice that I have, let me remove those real quick. I have a fire alarm or alert that went off during this time, and I need to understand why it actually went off. And so I can look and add my different sensors and really try to understand what is going on. So right here, I'm actually going to look into the oil pressure from one of my equipment. And I'm also going to see active warnings. And I can see that here, it looks like before the fire alert went off, I had some issues with this sensor. And actually the sensor's active warning went off as well. And so being able to see that before the fire alert really helps me gauge that this could potentially be the thing that caused the fire alert to go off. And so I could really dig into this data and correlate between the different sensors, really understand and do predictive maintenance or analysis of any issues that arise. And so you can see how this is just really nice to be able to visualize this data over time and really understand the different assets and how they play with each other. Because now I can see that, hey, if there's a long history of every time that this, the oil pressure goes down or spikes up, that could cause some, a fire or anything like that, or there's some issues where, when it slowly starts to spike, and if I start to see a trend there, I can do some predictive maintenance or make sure to service the equipment when the spike just happens, right when it happens. So I could really derive different types of insights from it. So this shows Time Series Insight Explorer, and hopefully that really helps put in perspective on how useful this is. And I didn't have to add any extra code to this to be able to set up this visualization. It worked right out of the box, which is really nice. All right, let's go through resources and how all of you can get started. So if you go to aka.ms Azure IoT Learning Path, we have two really great modules for you. If you're not familiar with Microsoft Learn is a sandbox learning experience. So you don't need a credit card to get started. It's nicely already ready for you to go. And so you can have a hands-on lab. So if you're interested in learning time series insights, and then also being able to identify anomalies through Azure Stream Analytics, go ahead and check out those two modules. We actually have over 40 plus learning hands-on tutorials on this platform. So definitely check that out. But for the two that relates for the webinar today, you can find that off of that collection. Next, if you're just interested in upskilling in Azure All Up or Azure IoT, we have a couple great, amazing resources. One is, I did mention Microsoft Learn already, but you can learn IoT Edge, digital twins, and a lot more. So it's really showing how to build an end-to-end solution. Next, we do have a Microsoft developer channel. So we have some deep dives there. We have some videos. We have the IoT show where you get a new video every Monday about an announcement or a new product or feature. We showcase different projects and community outreach on that channel. Next, we have the IoT tech community. This is where we host all of our technical blogs. So if you're interested in any of our latest announcements, but how-tos or new features, check out IoT Tech Community. And it's also a great place for you to go ahead and showcase and share your projects, because we would love to see them. And then the next is Azure IoT Docs. Azure IoT Docs, we have getting started guides. We have user guides. We really have deep dives in each one of the products and services, and white papers too to help you get started. And not highlighted on this slide, we do have Microsoft Q&A. Microsoft Q&A, think of it kind of like a Stack Overflow, but it's hosted on Microsoft. We're also monitoring Stack Overflow and helping out there. But if you want to get to us directly here on the product team and have a technical question, feel free to reach out to us on Microsoft Q&A. We're hosting a 30 Days to Learn Cloud Skills Challenge. So if you are taking the AZ220, there was a lot of material I covered in this presentation today that will help you with that certification. But if you want to take the skills challenge, it's 30 days and you can get a voucher for 50% off of your exam, which is really nice. And part of that 30-day Learn Challenge is actually these webinar series. So I just want to thank you for joining into this webinar today. I hope you found it useful. We're going to be continuing to upload new demos onto this playlist. So if you're interested and wanting to get the latest and greatest, we're hosting all these webinars here on YouTube, but I'm going to continue, and we're going to continue to keep with updated demos on this playlist. So continue to check back. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day.